evening. We're coming back on the air because the jury has reached a verdict.
A verdict has been reached.
The jury has reached a verdict in the double murder trial of Alex Murdaugh.
That's Alex Murdaugh there waiting for the verdict. The jury, we understand, has a verdict in this case. This is live, what you're watching right now.
Defendant will rise.
Docket number 2022 GS 15-00592, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions in the term of 2022, July, the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116, verdict.
I'm getting out. Let's call her now.
Copy.
2 miles out.
Colleton Zone 1, Sheriff's Dispatch.
Central 717 scene is secured. Got a Whiskey Fox, Whiskey Mike, both gunshot wounds to the head.
Sir, I want to let you know because of the scene, I did go get a gun and bring it down here.
It's in your vehicle? Do you have any guns on you at all?
No, sir. It's leaning up against the side of my car.
Okay. You're fine, man. You're fine. Turn around for me.
I don't have any.
Okay. Yes, sir. I see that. Okay. This is your wife and son?
And son.
Okay.
It's bad. It's bad. Check the pulses.
Yes, sir. This is the firearm you brought from inside the house?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went and got. This is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
He's been getting like punched. I know that's what it is.
Okay. When did you get home? Right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
Okay.
I left. I don't know what time. I can go back on my phone and tell you the exact times. Did you check?
Okay. Did I check what?
Did you check them?
We got medical guys that's what they're gonna do. Okay.
What are they doing? Can they hurry?
They are. Yes, sir. That gentleman that was out here already, he's one of the battalion chiefs. Okay.
What made you come out here tonight?
I went to. My mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital. My mom gets anxious when she does. I went to check on them and Maggie. Maggie's a dog lover, and she fools with the dogs. And I knew she'd gone to the kennel. I was at the house. I left the house and went to my mom's. Tried to call her when I left. Texted her, no response. When I got back to the house was obviously nobody was in there, so I figured they're still up here fooling around. Paul was, so I came back up here and I drove up and saw and called.
52-year-old Maggie Murdaugh and her 22-year-old son Paul were found outside their home, both shot multiple times, according to the coroner. They were discovered by husband and father Alex Murdaugh on their rural property 10 days ago. Alex called 911, according to police, but the call has not been made public. The murder sending shockwaves through the local community, where generations of the Murdaugh family have worked as well-known lawyers and prosecutors, tied to countless legal cases in the South Carolina Lowcountry.
A tragic situation. The Murdaugh family is well known.
In this 5-part series, we've examined the tragic murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, as well as the Murdaugh family dynasty in the Low Country region of South Carolina, dating back to the 1920s. Alex Murdaugh and the other Murdaugh family members have been involved and investigations involving several murders, corruption, and other alleged crimes including insurance fraud, defrauding clients, stealing insurance payouts, and drug-related charges since 2014. Paul Murdaugh was involved in and charged with the death of Mallory Beach in a fatal boating accident 2 years before his murder. He would, however, be killed before a trial date could be set. Many people, including Alec, believe that the murders were a retaliation for the Mallory Beach boat crash. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, would, however, rule out anyone involved in the boat crash as a suspect in the murders. They would also rule out anyone else who might have had a motive to murder the Murdaughs. This would include the family and friends of Stephen Smith, who was killed in 2015 by a blow to the head and then abandoned in the middle of the road. The autopsy report would rule his death as a hit and run, but interviews and interrogations would mention Buster Murdaugh's name over 40 times as a suspect in the murders.
First we heard he was shot, then we heard it was a hit and run, but recently, probably a week and a half ago, I'd say something like that, I heard that these 2, maybe 3 young men were in a vehicle. They were riding down 601, saw the car on the side of the road, I guess saw the boy walking. They turned back around. I guess they were attempting to, I don't want to say, mess around with him or something like that, and stuck something out the window, and it, hit him in, I don't know if it hit him in the head or the back or where it hit him. And then that's pretty much all I heard. I did hear names, and I heard a name, and that name was, he goes by Buster Murdaugh.
SLED would reopen the investigation into Smith's death based on evidence discovered while investigating Alex Murdaugh's wife and son's deaths. So far, no charges or indictments have been issued in Smith's death. SLED would also rule out the family of Gloria Satterfield, the Murdaugh family's housekeeper who suffered a severe head injury after falling down the front steps at the family Moselle estate. Alec acted suspiciously in the aftermath of her death, including plotting to steal Satterfield's $4.3 million insurance policy settlement against the Murdaugh family. The scam worked by diverting the insurance payout to Alex's account and then failing to notify the Satterfields of the insurance settlement. It involved forgery, Murdaugh's law firm PMPED, and Palmetto State Bank. Following subsequent lawsuits, the Satterfield sons were able to recover more than $6.5 million. Everyone who might have had a reason to kill Maggie and Paul would ultimately be ruled out by SLED, with the exception of one person, the individual who discovered their bodies and dialed 911.
And tonight, the dramatic new turn in this case. The once prominent South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh, already disbarred and accused of an insurance fraud scheme, tonight now indicted in the murders of his wife and 22-year-old son. ABC's Eva Pilgrim back on the story tonight.
Alec would be charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of possessing a weapon while committing a violent crime. Prosecutors suggested Murdaugh was looking for a distraction from his financial crimes, which were becoming public, in order to gain sympathy. Alec is currently facing over 100 criminal charges at the time of this video. Alec would enter a not guilty plea, and state prosecutors would begin to seek a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The Alex Murdaugh murder trial would begin on January 23, 2023.
After 5 years of death investigations, murder, lies, and fraud schemes, the bombshell trial of disbarred attorney Alex Murdaugh begins tomorrow in South Carolina.
This is going to be a big trial, and it's going to be a hard trial. Alex Murdaugh is accused of shooting his wife and his youngest son to death. Scene was grisly. Doesn't make a lot of sense. There's tons of speculation surrounding him on other matters as well. But it's all about this one matter and these 12 people in the alternates. Jury selection today.
It would take 2 days to select a jury of 8 women and 4 men for the murder trial in Walterboro, South Carolina's Colton County Courthouse. Judge Clifton Newman would also preside over the most anticipated trial in the state's history. On January 25th, Prosecutor Creighton Waters delivered his opening statement, revealing publicly for the first time that investigators discovered a blue raincoat covered in gun residue that Alec allegedly stashed at his mother's house 1 week after the murders.
It's uncharacteristic for him to show up early, uncharacteristic for him to show up at all like that. And he comes in, and he's carrying something in a blue tarp, and he takes it upstairs. And eventually law enforcement finds out about that. And they go upstairs, and they find a wadded up, very, very large raincoat in a blue color. Could look like a tarp. And you're gonna hear evidence that it was coated with gunshot residue on the inside.
The victim's horrific injuries were highlighted by Dick Harpootlian, a Democratic state senator and member of Alex's defense team. In his opening statements, he argued that it was unthinkable for a father who had a wonderful and loving relationship with his son and wife to commit such a heinous crime.
So, to find Alex Murdaugh guilty of murdering his son, you're going to have to accept that within an hour of having a extraordinarily bonding, that he executes him in a brutal fashion. Not believable. Not believable.
On the day of the murders, Alec claimed in his now famous 911 call that he arrived at his family's dog kennels at their Moselle estate after spending some time with his mother, only to find the bodies of his wife and son. Instead, prosecutors claim he lured his family there and shot them with 2 different weapons. To try and prove it, the prosecution began with a never-before-seen cell phone video taken shortly before the murders on Paul's phone.
And what is the contents of that CD?
It is a video I found on Paul Murdaugh's phone. The video looks like inside maybe a kenneled area with a fence around it and a dog, I believe to be a lab, where he's trying to take a video of the tail of the dog.
Okay. This time, state would move to enter Exhibit 297 into evidence.
Previous objection. Submitted over objection.
Get it. Get that. Quit, Cash. Come. Quit. It's okay. Come here. It's not bad. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. Post it. Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Bubba. Hey, Bubba.
That's a guinea.
This is a chicken.
Come here, Bubba.
Come here, Cash.
Come here, Bubba.
Cash. Quit.
Paul recorded himself playing with one of the dogs at the kennels. Prosecutors claim that 2 additional voices can be heard in the background, implying that one is Maggie and the other is Alec. They claim that in this video, which was recorded on Paul's phone around 8:44 p.m., occurred approximately 5 minutes before the shootings, based on when Paul and Maggie stopped looking at their phones and responding to texts. That would put Alec at the scene before the murders, contradicting his version of events.
When was the last time you were here with them? Or talked to them or anything like that?
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Because they didn't have GPS location data from Alec's phone on the night of the murders, the prosecution relied heavily on this video. The court watched Alec's initial half-hour interview with police, which took place shortly after the murders on the first day of testimony. In that video, Alec is wearing a clean shirt and speaks in a way that has sparked speculation about whether he's faking tears.
I hate to have to do this.
I understand.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
So you don't have any problem with it.
So just start at the top. Take your time.
My boy over there, I could see it was.
Among the most important evidence presented by the prosecution is ballistics evidence, which is primarily related to gunshot residue discovered on Alec's clothing and throughout his car, including the seatbelt and seat. However, While gunshot residue is compelling, it is still shaky forensically. It can transfer to someone who simply holds a gun without firing it, and can easily transfer from one person to another. Much of the other ballistic evidence is more alarming. Evidence that the defense fought and failed to exclude previously. The prosecution simply claimed that ammunition used to kill Alex's wife and son matched ammunition found throughout the Murdaugh estate. The 300 blackout rounds used to kill Maggie and the 12-gauge shotgun shells used to kill Paul in particular. Unused boxes in the family's gun room and spent shell casings discovered on the estate's hunting grounds were examples of matching ammo. Murdaugh also had a customized AR-15 style rifle made for him, according to witnesses. This type of gun is compatible with the bullets used to kill Maggie and fits evidence that Murdaugh used a rifle like this to murder her. As the proceedings in the courtroom heat up, one investigator testified that Murdaugh told him through tears, "I did him so bad," referring to the state of Paul's body.
Are not easy. I know it's hard. And sitting here talking today is tough.
It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
This prompted an exchange in which the defense played a slowed down version of this indecipherable audio in question and asked him if he heard "I" or "they."
It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
However, the state would have one more video up their sleeve. Jurors would be shown a Snapchat video taken by Paul on the night of the murders at 7:56 p.m.
Better than it was, ain't it? Is that the video you saw?
Yes, it is.
That was on the afternoon or the evening of June 7th, 2021?
That's correct.
The video, which was sent to Paul's friend Will Loving, shows Alex standing on the grounds of the family estate, staring at a small tree as it falls to the ground. Paul can be heard laughing behind the camera as his father says something. Alex is seen in the footage wearing pants, shoes, and a blue button-down shirt, which differs from what he is seen wearing in the police body cam footage following the murders. It's unclear whether investigators ever found or seized the second outfit Alex wears in the Snapchat video.
Better than it was, ain't it?
There is a video on Paul's phone of you and him on the farm that night. And you were in khaki pants and a dress shirt. The question in that is, when I met you that night, you were in shorts and a t-shirt. At what point in that evening did you change clothes?
The state would soon begin to investigate Alex's financial crimes as a possible motive for the murders. Witness testified that Murdaugh was confronted by his own law firm on the morning of the murders about unpaid legal fees.
For Alec, and when I got upstairs, he was standing outside of his office leaning on a file cabinet, and he looked at me with a pretty dirty look, one I'd not seen before, and said, "What do you need now?" Clearly disgusted with me, which kind of raised my hackles. So I said, "Well, let's go in your office and talk about it." When we went in his office, I told him, I said, "I have reason to believe that you received the Ferris money directly to you, and you need to prove to me that you did not."
The prosecution would begin to portray Murdaugh as a desperate man attempting to conceal his wrongdoing. Another possible motive introduced by the state would be Alex's self-proclaimed drug addiction. The state would introduce into evidence a copy of the text messages sent by Paul to Alex Murdaugh on May 6, 2021, in which Paul stated, "We have to talk. Mom found several bags of pills in your computer bag." Along with that would be computer spreadsheets revealing that Maggie had used Safari to search online for those pills on the same day. Marion Proctor, Maggie's sister, testified previously that Maggie frequently referred to Paul as her little detective because if Alec had illegal pills around the house, Paul would find them.
Did Maggie have a nickname for Paul?
As little, what is detective?
Little detective?
Mm-hmm.
And what did that mean?
She felt like that he was always looking to make sure his dad was behaving.
And what specifically was the concern?
Pills, prescription pain pills.
And had Maggie expressed to you concern over time about the defendant's pill usage?
Yes.
How long had that been going on?
I am not sure, but I think it had been going on for some time.
And did that concern continue up until recent times as we moved to their Maggie and Paul's murder?
Yes.
During a taped conversation with SLED, Alex stated that when he was experiencing drug withdrawal symptoms, he would do almost anything to obtain drugs.
You encouraged her to go to Moselle.
I did.
Was that the last time you talked to her?
Yes.
She also testified that everyone in her family and the Murdaugh family appeared to be afraid of the real killers out there, with the exception of Alec, whose conversations at the time centered on the boat crash case and getting his other son Buster back in law school, which is odd. Following the introduction of vehicle GPS data, the state presented a comprehensive timeline of data from the night of the killings taken from several cell phones, vehicle data from General Motors and OnStar, and other sources, reinforcing previous claims that Alec lied to authorities and highlighting new inconsistencies in his statements to 911 and police. The data primarily reveals that Alec's phone showed no activity for most of the evening of the killings. Also, that several entries from his call log were deleted from his phone but appeared on others' phones, and that he called 911 so quickly after discovering the bodies that he would not have had time to check the victims for a pulse, as he told 911. How quickly, you ask? Well,
from the moment the Suburban arrived at the kennels, how long did it take for that 911 call to be made?
Less than 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Unless you think that in 20 seconds, he managed to find both his wife and son's bodies, process what had happened, and check pulses of both individuals before dialing 911. Yeah. Alec's phone data shows that he took 283 steps, or roughly 70.75 steps per minute, between 9:02 and 9:06 p.m. It was the fastest and most steps he'd taken all afternoon.
How many steps?
283 steps, 70.75 steps per minute estimated.
He was a busy guy right then, wasn't he?
It appears.
Further inconsistencies would manifest themselves as well. According to his alibi, Alec would leave Moselle at 9:07 p.m. to drive to Alameda to visit his sick mother. However, police believe Paul and Maggie were killed between 8:50 and 9:06 p.m., when Murdaugh's vehicle was cranked. Alec would be clocked traveling about 42 miles per hour when police discover Maggie's phone, then quickly accelerate to a speed of 74 miles per hour, much faster than his previous day's average clocked speeds in that same area. Alec made his first stop to Alameda in the back of the property behind his parents' house, near the wood line and some outbuildings. Investigators now believe that he may have disposed of the murder weapons and evidence there. Alec's Suburban departs Alameda approximately around 9:43 p.m., implying Alec was there for approximately 20 minutes, contradicting his previous 45 minutes to an hour statement he originally told SLED.
I left, I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
How long did he stay there? That's okay.
20 minutes.
According to reports, Alec would return to his Moselle property at 10 p.m., having reached a top speed of 80 miles per hour on the return route. He would enter the Moselle estate first, then at 10:05 p.m., he would head out for the kennels. He would reach the kennels 57 seconds after that, and in less than 20 seconds, at 10:06 p.m., he would dial 911. The state of South Carolina rested its case against Alex Murdaugh after 20 days of proceedings, including 18 days of testimony, 60 witnesses, and approximately 400 exhibits of evidence. However, it was now up to the defense to make their case for Alec. Dick Harpootlian, the defense lawyer, would work to portray the once powerful legal titan as a flawed man who admitted he didn't always tell the truth but would never hurt his family. He would accomplish this by bringing family members to testify on Alec's behalf, including his last remaining son, Buster.
GH, I go by Buster.
The defense attempted to poke holes in the prosecution's arguments during Buster Murdaugh's testimony. One of them is that Alex Murdaugh changed his clothes on the day his family was murdered for reasons related to their deaths.
How frequently would your dad take a shower or bath?
He could take them a lot. And he, working out there, if he goes outside and sweats a lot, comes back in and takes a shower.
Was that normal routine for him?
It was.
And did you sweat a lot?
Yeah, it's hot out there in the summertime.
Buster didn't have much to say to the jury because he wasn't a witness to the crime, but he did share thoughts on the days leading up to and following the murders. Overall, Buster and his family likely elicited some sympathy from the traumatic and unexpected losses they endured. However, for such a close family as Alec and his defense team tried to portray to the jury, Buster not knowing his father's birthday would seem odd.
Friends, when's your dad's birthday? Do you know the exact date? It's not a test. You just say you don't know if you don't.
No, I don't know the exact date.
With the momentum of a conviction leaning either way at this point in the trial, Alec's defense team would take a risk and call their star witness.
Have you made a decision as to whether you're going to testify?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what is your decision?
I am going to testify. I want to testify.
All right, very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
For better or worse, Alec's decision to testify would be a gamble that would determine whether he was acquitted or sentenced to life in prison.
I'm Alex Murdaugh, Murdaugh. Good morning.
Mr. Murdaugh, on June 7th, 2021, did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day or any time?
No, I did not.
Murdaugh testified for about 10 hours over the course of 2 days, acknowledging and admitting to a variety of things during examination and cross-examination. Among other things, he stole from his law clients, pocketed checks he was supposed to hand over to his law firm, and confessed to a slew of financial crimes.
Repeat that, please, sir.
Sure. Would you agree that your stealing increased over the years as we move towards June of 2021?
Yes, sir.
He would even admit to installing blue lights in his car and wearing a solicitor's badge while impersonating law enforcement.
What advantage did you want?
When?
Then?
I don't even recall this, Mr. Waters, but if I was wanting some advantage, as you say it, I guess, and I don't remember this, but I guess I would want, as I said, a badge has a warming effect with other law enforcement.
However, and more importantly, his most difficult challenge was explaining why he claimed to be at the family house on the night of the murders, when the video taken by his son proved otherwise.
Mr. Murdaugh, is that you? On the kennel video at 8:44 p.m. on June 7th, the night Maggie and Paul were murdered.
It is.
Were you in fact at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you lie to Sled Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th and told them that you stayed at the house after dinner?
I did lie to them.
Did you lie to Agent Owen and Agent Croft on the follow-up interview on June 10th that the last time you saw Maggie and Paul was at dinner?
I did lie to them.
And in the interview of August 11th, did you tell Agent Owen and Agent Croft, did you lie to them by telling them that you were not down at the kennels on that night?
Yes.
You continued lying after that night, did you not?
Once I lied, I continued to lie. Yes, sir.
Why?
You know, oh, what a tangled web we weave. But once I told a lie, I told my family, I had to keep lying.
Alec would abruptly change his alibi and admit for the first time that he was at the kennels with his family and that he had lied to the police about his whereabouts in fear of being considered a suspect due to allegedly having drugs in his possession and his self-admitted distrust of SLED.
I had a deputy sheriff taking gunshot test from my hands. I'm sitting in a police car with David Owen asking me about my relationship with my wife and my son. And all those things coupled together after finding them, coupled with my distrust for SLED, caused me to have paranoid thoughts.
Murdaugh would eventually blame the killings on social media rage directed at his son.
Now, what I believe, Mr. Waters, is I believe that when Paul was charged criminally, there were so many leaks, half-truths, half-reports, half-statements, partial information, misrepresentations of Paul that ended up in the media all the time. And when I tell you the social media response that came from that was vile, the things that were said about what they would do to Paul, they were so over the top that nobody would believe anybody would get on social media and do that. But I believe then and I believe today that the wrong person saw and read that.
Murdaugh claimed to have eaten dinner with his wife, who then drove with their son to the dog kennels on the property. Alec had initially refused to accompany them, but eventually followed them in a golf cart, he explained. He testified that after removing a chicken from a dog's mouth, he returned to the house in the golf cart to cool off in the air conditioning.
I would have had the chicken out of his mouth within 10, 15 seconds of Maggie saying he's got a chicken.
What'd you do after that?
I left.
You left.
Now, did I
Jumped
leave?
on the golf cart and left.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. Did I get on the golf cart and leave that second? Probably not. But did I get on the golf cart and leave very quickly after that? I did.
Okay, yeah, I think you testified yesterday. I got out of there.
I did.
Why'd you get out of there so quick, Mr. Murdaugh?
Because it was chaotic, it was hot, and I was getting ready to do exactly what I didn't want to do. I was getting ready to sweat.
Waters told Murdaugh that his explanation defied logic.
All right, well, let me ask you a question then. So what you're telling this jury is that it's a random vigilante.
That's your
the 12-year-old 5'2" people that just happened to know that Paul and Maggie were both at Moselle on June 7th, that knew that they would be at the kennels alone on June the 7th, that knew that you would not be there, but only between the times of 8:49 and 9:02, that they show up without a weapon, assuming that they're going to find weapons and ammunition there, that they commit this crime during that short time window, and then they travel the same exact route that you do around the same time to Alameda. That's what you're trying to tell this jury?
You got a lot of factors in there, Mr. Waters, all of which I do not agree with, but some of which I do.
Waters would conclude his cross-examination by exposing yet another lie Alec would tell on the stand, based on his new alibi and reasoning. It would expose the new reason Alec gave for lying to SLED about his whereabouts by being false, due to the point of which his lies would start.
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
That was Sergeant Green, correct?
Yeah, that was Sergeant Green.
And at that point in time, SLED was not there? No one had gotten GSR from you. Your law partners or Sheriff Hill were not there.
That's correct.
No one had asked you about your relationships. David Owen was not there.
That's correct.
But you still told the same lie. And all those reasons that you just gave this jury about the most important part of your testimony was a lie too. Isn't that true, Mr. Murdaugh?
I disagree with that.
Nothing further.
The defense would call a few more witnesses to testify on Murdaugh's behalf, but they would ultimately rest their case by questioning the timeline of the night of the murders and offering a counter theory that the two guns were fired by two shooters. They claim that the criminals are still missing as a result of SLED's biased investigation. Following the state's final rebuttal of the defense's key witnesses with their own, Judge Clifton Newman would rule in favor of Murdaugh's defense team and grant its request to have the jury travel to Moselle to better visualize the testimony and visit the site, particularly the kennels, where Alec discovered his wife and son dead. The jury would arrive on the property around 9:40 a.m. and stay for about an hour. Both the state and defense will make their closing arguments in court.
You fooled Maggie and Paul too. And they paid for it with their lives. Don't let him fool you too.
The thing that has baffled us, has completely baffled us, is why did they never take DNA samples off of Maggie's clothes?
When I looked at this case the first time, I said to myself, this is a CSC case. Now, in our world, that means criminal sexual conduct. It's not a criminal sexual conduct case. This is a common sense case.
After hearing from 75 witnesses over the course of 5 weeks, the jury would only deliberate for just under 3 hours before reaching a decision.
Good evening. We're coming back on the air because the jury has reached a verdict.
A verdict has been reached.
The jury has reached a verdict in the double murder trial of Alex Murdaugh.
That's Alex Murdaugh there waiting for the verdict. The jury, we understand, has a verdict in this case. This is live, what you're watching right now.
The defendant will rise.
Docket number 2022 GS 15-00592, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions in the term of 2022, July, the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. Okay. Guilty verdict. Signed by the forelady, 3-2-23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00593, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, the July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, in verdict guilty, signed by the forelady, date 3-2-23. Docket number.
Judge Clifton Newman would give Murdaugh one last chance to appeal at his sentencing the next day.
This has been perhaps one of the most troubling cases, not just for me as a judge, for the state, for the defense team, but for all of the citizens in this community, all the citizens in this state, and as we've seen based on the media coverage throughout the nation. You have a wife who's been killed, murdered, a son savagely murdered, a lawyer, a person from a respected family who has controlled justice in this community for over a century, a person whose grandfather's portrait hang at the back of the courthouse. And it was especially heartbreaking for me to see you go in the media from being a grieving father who lost a wife and a son to being the person indicted and convicted of killing them. In this case, qualifies under our death penalty statute based on the statutory aggravating circumstances of 2 or more people being murdered by the defendant by one act or pursuant to one scheme or course of conduct. I don't question at all the decision of the state not to pursue the death penalty. But as I sit here in this courtroom and look around the many portraits of judges and other court officials and reflect on the fact that over the past century, your family, including you, have been prosecuting people here in this courtroom, and many have received the death penalty, probably for lesser conduct. Remind me of the expression you gave on the witness stand. Was it tangled? Oh, what tangled web we weave. What did you mean by that?
It meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
And the question is, when will it end? When will it end? You know, your license to practice law has been stripped away from you. You turn from lawyer to witness, and now have an opportunity to make your final appeal as an ex-lawyer. And it's almost, it's really surprising that you're waiving this right at this time. And if you opt to do so, it's on you. You're not compelled to say anything. But you have the opportunity to do so.
Judge, I tell you again, I respect this court, but I'm innocent. I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Paul.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills. Maybe you become another person. I've seen that before. The person standing before me was not the person who committed the crime, though it's the same individual. We'll leave that at that.
Unmoved, Judge Newman would deliver his sentence.
All right, Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections on each of the murder indictments in the murder of your wife, Maggie Murdaugh. I sentence you for a term of the rest of your natural life for the murder of Paul Murdaugh, whom you probably loved so much. I sentence you to prison for murdering him for the rest of your natural life. Those sentences will run consecutive. That is the sentence of the court, and you are remanded to the State Department of Corrections. And officers may carry forth on the imposition
At the end of the day, there was really only one star witness. And in murder cases, the victims obviously can't testify, but they do in many ways. They leave something that tells you what happened to them. It was Paul's video in this case. It's that little detective speaking from beyond the grave.
Aside from all that, our business is done here in Colleton County. And I get to use my gavel one or few times during this trial and order that court be adjourned. Sine die.